I'm Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, June 5th. I'm Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at RE/MAX Camosa, and welcome to the Victoria Real Estate Show with...
Hey, everybody. Andrew playing with the Vibe Collective and Royal LePage. And hey, it's wonderful to be here, whether it's June 5th or June 15th. It's all good.
We're going to do our May monthly update so that you guys can see what's going on. And Jen Lowe is coming. She's having some technical difficulties. So let's get started.
We will bring her on the show when she's here. Yes.
Do you want to load up today's show?
Sure. Yeah. So here we are. Here we are. So yes, it is June 5th. So we're going to review what happened in May and talk about what the May stats look like. Why is Jane laughing? I don't know.
All right. So
that shouldn't show up, that one. Moving on.
New listings this week, we have 382 compared to 357. This is showing a trend actually of increased listings coming up. May is generally our biggest month, and we're heading into June. We'll see if we're going to change the way that real estate is flowing this year. Pendings were at 136. That's compared to 161 last week. And price decreases are higher at 167 compared to 154. And expireds are at 74 compared to 35. And I'm just going
to... And again, that straddles the end of the month where we tend to see a bump of expired listings. But overall, we're seeing listings are up week over week, sales are down week over week, and price increases are up week over week. So not the direction we want to see if we want to see a bolstering market. But I still don't think we're, blood in the water yet by any means, but we are getting to be pretty high inventory. And some of the other markets that we're seeing, I'm hearing bad news from Ontario and Vancouver on definitely slower markets there. And those kind of will affect consumer confidence and could bring the illness here.
So what I find is that we really are what I would call a tertiary market. So we have Toronto, Vancouver, maybe Calgary. And then what happens is their markets go down and then we follow. We tend to follow what's happening in their markets. We're like the outer edge of those markets.
Right.
Those people feed us.
I still think of it like a chocolate fountain where there's the layers upon the layers is that the fountain pops up from the top and then spills to the next layer and then spills to the next layer. And so we might be tertiary, but then we've also got layers outside of the core of Victoria, where you've got the outlying districts of the Victoria, like Souk, where that effect even goes beyond what the top of the tier might be Toronto, Vancouver, then Victoria, then we might be flowing out to Souk. So those areas go up first, we follow, they go down.
I think we follow as well. I don't think it's like Victoria where you see the market compressing from the outside. I think what happens is the market goes down in Vancouver or Toronto, and then those people aren't buying here
as much. Yeah. Although when there is a cutback to areas that are the core areas tend to be more insulated. So we do see that way where the fluctuations are wider for the they happen later for the ups for the outlying areas, but I think they happen sooner for the downs for the outlying areas oftentimes. That may not be the case right now, but that's something I do.
So I had a brilliant thought, but I'm going to hold it. Let's go to the next slide.
Okay, well, that's good. Keep us in suspense. So this list to sell ratio is down also week over week. So this week it's only at 35.6. So the sales versus the listings, 35.6. That's versus 45.1% the week before.
Right.
So
So
that's saying for every new listing coming into the marketplace, the percentage of sales out of the full percentage of sales that same week are these numbers.
right. So we're also going to look at the monthly stats, and we'll look at the list to sale ratio there, which will tell us over the month where the balance of the market is. And then
Yes.
will also give us the absorption rate. So if we were to stop listing any homes, what would be the time that it would take to sell your home right now?
If they continue selling at this current rate, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always think that one's a funny one, simply because obviously there are some homes that are just never going to sell. You can't use that absorption rate as it's a metric, but it wouldn't actually work in real life. If the tap just turned off in terms of new listings, you wouldn't end up selling all the listings over that time period.
Correct.
It's something to think of mind.
So, month-to-date statistics. Well, I think actually this is actually a month of May, and I don't think this was the month of May last year. I think it was actually the week last month. So, but anyway, net unconditional sales are at 758 compared to 763 for this month. This is for May. The new listings are 1,834 for May, and total number of active listings are high at 3,716. So that's as of Monday, the month to date. But they did quote what was happening in May. All right. All right. So we're going to do our monthly market update now. So Andrew, take it away.
Okay, so we can see that our active listings are at a high, the highest point they've been since May 2023, which is as far back as this goes. This is a 2-year span we're seeing. And we are seeing the annual fluctuations as it goes, up in the spring and then down through into the winter. And there's, again, usually a bit of a bump in the fall. And we saw that in September 2024. So this, if we kind of extrapolate what we've seen in the past, we're seeing the rise up of sales or listings increasing and accelerating through February and March. And then between April and May, we can see it starting to slow down a little bit. And we'll start to see this curve continue to just follow that curve into the summertime. So we're going to definitely see more listings active throughout the summer. We may reach over 4,000 by summer. And at that point, people will maybe start taking their properties off, we find that the listings tend to sort of dry up in the summer as well. So that's why these numbers tend to go down as well a little bit year over year.
So this is total active listings, and we're going to go to list to sale ratio. Yeah. But what's interesting is typically in the past, our high end has been in May, and I'm finding now it's probably peaking in June. So I expect the numbers to go up for June and then decrease over July and August, and then have that little bump again.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Yeah. I remember being astonished when we went over 2,000 a couple of years ago. Now we're going to almost be double that. Scary. Okay. So these are total new MLS listings and total MLS sales. So the sales will be slightly behind because the sales happened about 6 to 8 weeks ago. But you can see what Andrew was talking about. You have the seasonal fluctuation with May peaking in the total new listings. So this is what I was saying before. And we're following the same sort of pattern. January seems higher than normal. May, again, we're peaking. And we'll see what's happening in June, but I have a feeling we're going to be up again.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. List to sale ratio here. You can see we had a good month in May of this year, as well as last year. It seems to be that's our best month for sales in real estate in Greater Victoria, right?
Yeah. So again, if you look at the line, not the bars, and you can see in the past, the line peaked in May 2024. And you can also see in May 2023 that it was higher than any other time that's shown on our graph for 2023. And looking earlier in 2023, you'd probably see that that was the peak. It does tend to follow that. So we'll probably be moving downwards for sales from here on into the rest of the year. For every month, we'll probably see a little bit less sales. And that's just a normal trend. It's not anything to be surprised by.
Right. I'm just looking also last year we had, you know, how you feel how things are going in the market and then you see and you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like we had a big November and December, actually bigger than normal. It was quite busy. So this is encouraging. And I was thinking today, what would be something that would really help real estate in Canada in general? And I think it has to do with foreign students and just having we've lost that inventory of people coming in needing housing. So that's why I think that maybe there's been a compression. I think that's one of the
there's also a stated aim by the federal government, provincial government, to create more housing, to actually build more inventory, create less demand on the housing market. One of the reasons they put in the foreign buyer ban was to do that. That didn't really have an appreciable impact. I think the foreign buyers are not really as big a part of the market as some people had thought. But overall, I think that the government is trying to moderate or lower prices and increase building stock. So if they can build, if they can create situations that encourage that, then we will continue to see more inventory and moderating prices. But then demand always trumps all that. So
it depends on net migration, and we'll see what happens after 2026, right? Yeah. When the foreign buyer ban. I mean, is the foreign buyer ban really affecting people? Yes.
Right now, I think we would have a flood of U.S. buyers if the buyer ban wasn't in effect. And we are seeing, I think, some of that in the areas that are outside of the buyer ban. Because I am hearing where there's been some speculation. I've seen some very large sales of properties outside of the ban area where people are saying, well, where did this come from? Why did they get 11 offers on this property? And it went, $400,000 above. To think of one in particular. Was it potentially foreign buyers that
motivated?
Could be. Americans.
So that's where the population is less than 10,000. That's where foreigners are allowed to purchase right now because they're not banned. Okay, so the list to sale absorption rate here, a balanced market is at 20%, and we are balanced is 14 to 20%. Seller's market is above 20%. It says we're just floating slightly above a balanced market. So we're in a seller's market, but I really think we're more
I think
balanced.
That this metric is old school metric. I think that this number that we are referencing, saying a balanced market is 14 to 20%, and that we are really in a seller's market right now. I just think that's not true anymore. It feels to me like we are in more of the buyer side of a balanced market. And this is actually saying we're not even in a balanced market. So for any of those watching here or listening, even though maybe old school stats would say you're in a balanced market, or you're in a seller's market, we are not in a seller's market. We're definitely not in a seller's market. But we're not in a buyer's market either. We are in a balanced market on the side of buyers. That's Jane's laughing at me, but I think I will fight tooth and nail for that.
Okay, well, we are not in an easy market. It's not like, during COVID or May 2023, it was definitely a seller's market. and we would
Absolutely.
list a property and it would sell. It would sell like in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, what he's saying is, listen, like we are waiting for buyers to pick our property.
Yeah, of course. But that's a normal market. There's a lot of people who got used to, and there's some agents who've gone into the business in the last number of years who expected things to be easy because that's all they experienced, and didn't understand. Like it's always been really important to provide service and value to your clients, but now more than ever, it's really important to have patience, to be able to talk people through the various stages of grief that they're going through as their home doesn't sell, and to be able to normalize it and say, like, this is what we can expect in this kind of market, and we're not doing anything wrong. We're just really at this point having to wait and see, or we need to take these actions to bring attention to your home. But there's a lot more work and a lot more communication required as people sit there with their homes, remembering they've got to keep it clean and tidy and ready for a showing that could be happening twice a week. There's a lot of angst.
Okay. I agree. And, all we can do is try to make our house as appealing as possible, price it where we think that we will get attention and get those bums through the door, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bottoms.
So the purple cow thing, like in a field of cows, it's the purple cow that stands out. Your home in a field of almost 4,000 listings. Obviously, it's going to be competing against a smaller subset in a specific area, but your home has a lot more competition than it had before. So what are you doing to make it stand out? One of the big things is always price, but there's a lot of other things that we as agents can do to try to target your ideal buyer and make it happen. So it's much more important now than ever when you've got way more listings than you have buyers. When we had way more buyers than we had listings, it was much easier to get attention on your property.
I think that was said backwards, but what you're saying is when you have more buyers than you have listings, it's easier to get attention on your property. Yeah.
I thought that's what I said, but if I said it backwards, I apologize.
I don't know anymore.
What Jane said.
Okay, so housing prices. So let's just look at this through like
blur your eyes out.
Blur your eyes and you will see we are in a balanced market. We have normal fluctuations that happen depending on the time of year. You can see in the summer, the market tends to go up. In the winter, it tends to go down. I remember I had a house that I was thinking of selling for a long time. And look who we have here. Just watching it over time. And seeing the fluctuation depending on the time of year. Okay, so Jen's here. Hi, Jen.
Hello, Jen.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, for those who are looking at the market over time, who are listening, we're at 1.3 million now, and this has been pretty steady over the past 2 years. And how are you, Jen?
A little flustered, but I'm here. I'm working off of my hotspot, and I'm so sorry for the delay. We just got some internet issues at our office.
So glad you could make it eventually, though. So
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so condos. Do you want to do this, and then we'll come back and we'll do your slides. I'll get them up for you. Okay.
Okay. So in terms of condos, again, this is just really what the housing price index flows through for average housing condo prices in all areas. We can see overall, I almost want to look at, I said this before, but 2024 was pretty boring. Things were not moving around a lot for a big swath of 2024. We had a drop there in December, and then things started to really bounce up in terms of activity early 2025. I think that, and then it's moderated back to pretty much exactly the same level it was in 2024. So we had a bit of a bump in activity, and then it's moderated down again. Why? Not sure. Interest rates at the time in December 2024, January 2025, we were expecting things to get better and better interest rate wise. We were expecting the affordability of places to get better. And then with the uncertainty of what's going on in the States and the Bank of Canada holding on not lowering their rates as much as we maybe had anticipated, I think that is affecting people in that condo price point much more than perhaps in larger price points where people maybe already have established their assets, have more money to buy a home. I don't know. I'm anticipating that's what it is. Jen was nodding her head there, so let's get her jumping in on this.
Well, just the typical uncertainty gets people to stall, and just not sure how things are going to pan out.
Yeah. I think it's a really key point for folks to keep in mind is to watch that uncertainty, because there's a lot of opportunity in uncertainty. In other words, if you get meta about it and think, okay, I'm seeing everyone really uncertain right now, so they're holding off and waiting for a really clear direction. This means that there may be an opportunity for me in buying a property from a seller who is feeling uncertain as well.
Absolutely.
Because that uncertainty changes on the drop of a hat. Sometimes you don't see it happening, and suddenly everyone is gung-ho on buying a property, and then prices take off. So a longer period of uncertainty if it's been a long period of uncertainty, it's a great time to actually get in, because the only constant is change, and uncertainty doesn't last forever.
So I just want to say, as a listing realtor, this is why, what's it saying? Don't give up. Don't give up now, because you might be like 5 seconds away from the next miracle or whatever. That's what happened. I feel last week, like we were waiting and waiting.
Yeah, there's that whole, the story of the guy who bought a mine and mined it for his entire life, and then never struck it rich, gave up and went traveling the world, sold it to some new young person. They went in and started chipping away with their pickaxe and found that they were just 2 feet from gold. People often give up just before the time when it's about to take off.
Yeah. So over the weekend, I think like this past week, we had like 5 or 7 sales go through, just because we were still there. The buyer was there, and there was a good match made, and and working both sides, both the buyer and the seller, and also just taking advantage. So I find looking at the big picture and just going, okay, now's the time to move. Now's the time to move. Now's the time to move. Because if sometimes what happens is we can get analysis paralysis, and we just stop. And buyers are like, well, what if I, should I wait? Is there going to be more choice? Am I going to find the right place? All that stuff. You know what? Sometimes you just need to make the decision.
I think it's really important to remember your initial intent, and what you're coming for, and what your goal is, and what the actual benefits of meeting that goal. Because people do get scared and distracted by the what ifs and some of this. I mean, the fear of loss is a bigger motivator than opportunity to gain. That's something you hear over and over again, and that's one of the challenges with people who are going into this, trying to improve their lives, make a move in the real estate market, buy their first home, upsize, downsize, whatever it is. But it's that fear of, what if this doesn't work out, or what if this goes sideways, or what if the market changes, that holds people back. And in my 19 years of career, the people who I've seen who have done really, really well for themselves, holistically overall in real estate and otherwise, are the people who are relatively decisive.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that COVID really created havoc for people who were over analytical. Just because
could
they were
not-
like, I can't make a quick decision about this. There's too many factors inputting, right?
Their heads were exploding. They couldn't deal with that. Now, this is a great market for someone who's highly analytical. I mean, it's a better market. And in the market of COVID, those people that are highly analytical, there's a real strong opportunity for sitting down and talking to them and saying, I don't think now is the time for you to be looking, because you are just going to implode. You are not going to be happy. You're going to make a decision that you're going to regret. Even if we get you the best property ever, you're going to be having trouble with it. Now, should they have bought? They probably should have. And advising them not to may have cost them money, but it's not a comfortable place for them to be, and they need to really know whether or not they're going to go forward. And a lot of those people just don't, they never actually end up buying something. So why put them through the trouble?
Yeah, I've had a client who, well, I mean, I'm not going to pretend to, okay, hold on a second. We need to talk about this.
Oh, this is getting serious. Okay.
So I run a coaching group and we met on Tuesday, and one of the realtors was saying, you know, I really want to win for my clients all the time. I really want to make sure that I get the best money for those people, and that I think, you know, they should listen to me more, and then I'm going to fight for them. And honestly, I feel that way too sometimes. Like when I'm listing a property and I'm thinking, God, you know, we could have squeezed 5,000 more or something. We are here to educate our clients, and it's up to them to make the decision.
Yes.
We're coaches.
Yeah.
We provide information.
Preach.
Yeah.
So I really think I can't say to a person who is what I call high knowledge, who's an investigator, don't buy a property now because you're going to get overwhelmed. I did have that happen during COVID, and I just like I had this client who didn't want to go into multiple offers ever, and they had been pressured by their realtor and all this stuff. And luckily we wrote an offer on a property, and then it went into multiple offers because they wouldn't have submitted. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we got it. So they're so happy, and their house is worth way more than when they purchased. It was at the beginning of COVID. But the thing is I think the reason why people work with you, Andrew, and you, Jen, and me, is because we have the perspective of time over the market. Right? We know what's where do we fit in the big scheme of things? Where are we going, and what's happening right now, and how is that relevant to you making your decision right now? So like I tell people, if you're in the military and you want to move in 5 years, you know, don't go buying the $1.6 million house. Buy the more regular, easy to sell home, because that's the one that's going to turn over more easily when you go to sell, because cash,
when you go to sell.
Because the cash flow is more important.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We call those cookie cutter.
Yeah,
cookie cutter.
Yeah, I call them the bread and butter listing.
That sounds.
And they're great.
I like that better.
You know, they fit into the Venn diagram where you've got all the different circles of overlap, where in the very center it's like every type of buyer is looking for this. An investor, buyer, families looking for 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, let's say, of 2,000 square foot in the core with a suite. This is going to hit so many different angles of what people are looking for that it's just always going to be easily resold. Yes, there's going to be more competition because there's more of them out there too, maybe. But they're gonna just always sell well. Whereas that unique unicorn home that you fall in love with because it works perfectly for you, and you say you're never going to move and sell, and you buy it with your partner, and then 6 months later you guys are at each other's throats and you're ready to divorce because you know that one's going to be harder to sell because now you're waiting for that other perfect fit.
And the other thing is, yes, Jen.
Speaking from personal experience as a buyer and seller of real estate, I have never bought when the market's really, really hot. And I have bought my forever home 4 times.
And sold it.
So,
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
you
I'm
know,
in my forever home right now, and I'm like, this is way too big. So why did
How
I
do
buy such a
you-
big home?
So I never want to piss on somebody's parade. I never want to like, give them, but people say, oh, this is our forever home. We want this forever home. And I can like probably 3 transactions last year where people who said, this is it. This is our last home. We're never going to move again. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to move, like,
different life stages.
you cannot buy and with the belief. You always have to have in the back of your head, I guess. And there is an argument for burning your bridges and saying, no, this is it. We're never going to make that move. This is why we're doing this. But there should still maybe be something in the back of your mind. How do you guys manage that? Because like I said, I don't want to piss on their parade, but I want to be, yeah.
Okay, so sometimes I have clients who have elderly parents or they have teenagers and they feel the stress. They feel the stress to add a space to their home. So either they want to bring the parents in or the teenager needs more space. And sometimes I say to them, okay, we can do that. But you know what? You're actually in the ideal home for you in 5 or 10 years. So you can go through the pain of living in the same place and saving the money, knowing that eventually this house is going to be the right size home for you again.
Yeah.
But some people can't, like, they're in the moment, right?
Right. Yeah. But and that that's the kind of advice that I think Jane, you and I and Jen, you would give to your mortgage clients, where we're thinking holistically and we don't necessarily get business from people because we say, you know what, you don't need to sell right now because you need to look, well, you could look at this a little bit wider and think about it this way. And otherwise you're going to sell, there's going to be costs, there's going to be stress, you're going to buy, there's going to be costs, there's going to be stress. And then you're going to be selling again in 3 years when, these circumstances have changed. So why don't we hold and, treat me like the family doctor who's been in your family doctor for years. And when you need advice or a friend needs advice, call me. But for now, let's not do business.
Right.
Well, and it's our experience in knowing the questions to ask and providing that information.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get back to the stats, guys, because I've got a meeting here in 5 minutes and I want to make sure we get wrapped up.
Go, Andrew.
Oh, okay, me again. So, I mean, we can see there was a drop in December 2023 through January 2024. I wonder why that was. And then does anyone want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think it had to do with probably no high-end townhome selling. Because, I mean, there aren't a lot of townhomes, I think, that are in the 850 range per se, where the average is here. They're either way above or below. So I think
isn't it?
We're looking at an average here.
Yeah.
So
unless you're in Langford, Colwood, the 850 range might be more in keeping with that. But this number's actually been, if you look at it, it's actually been overall, it feels to me like it was trending down, just a slight down from the 850. Let's call on the far left of this 850 high, and then it bounced around a bit. But as Jane said earlier in the show, just squint your eyes. And I'd say the average started to be a little bit lower between that 800 and 850, the average of where that trend bounced around into a couple months there towards the end. And then we bounced back in May 2025 to a bump up. But we see so much volatility in townhouses because the average, a really expensive or really inexpensive sale can change the average so rapidly when there's less townhouses selling. I suspect we're going to see that again down next month, but I mean that's just speculation. So that's my take on that chart. Anybody?
It's flat.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving on.
Okay. By the way, do you like the show? Please like the show. By the way, we had a little bit of an issue with the Briar Hill Group Facebook page, in that due to some shenanigans, somebody took us off managing our own page. So if you could please like our Briar Hill group new Facebook page, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, that's
From
rough.
5,000 to none. So I can't share this podcast on that page, but please go to the Briar Hill group new Facebook page. You can see their logo on the bottom left. That's the new logo. We're like, this is all happening because we're rebranding. And anyway, we're hoping to fix it. Okay. Andrew, how do people reach you?
Yeah, you give me a call. I'm at 250-360-6106. Email is info@andrewplank.com, and the website andrewplank.com has loads of resources and information. I'm also at realvibe.ca. That's realvibe.ca, and that's our team page. We've got a great blog there where we've been adding lots of great info. So come check us out. And that's me.
Okay, awesome. Jen, how do people reach you?
I am at 250-217-4925. Email is jen@jenlowe.ca, and my website is jenlowe.ca. And I'd love to have a chat with you just with regards to the most recent Bank of Canada rate announcement.
Awesome.
Okay. We'll deal with that next week. Oh, by the way, I have a guest for next week. I have Trisha Lehan from Arizona talking about what's happening in the States.
Oh, awesome.
So,
that'll be interesting. Yeah. Let's do that.
And I'm Jane Johnston. I'm with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun, and my number is 250-744-0775. You can reach me. Actually, the best email, honestly, is briarhillgroup@gmail.com or jane@briarhillgroup.com. And my website's briarhillgroup.com, where I work with Sean Provencher. And you can follow me in lifestyle in Victoria, realtorteacher_Remax_Victoria. All right, you guys, we will be back next Thursday at 9:30. Take care and see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. See you later.
Take care. Have a good week. Bye.